All right, I thought I'd give a little rundown on the last couple of weeks, some thoughts that are in my mind that I would share with the audience. First of all, I just wanted to share something. I was working with some behavioral scientists, and this one person had studied serial killers. And just as a public service announcement, I wanted to share this so you could share with your daughters. There's a very powerful phrase, and it works quite well with females, but also some males. And when they studied serial killers and how they are able to kind of lure and entice women into dangerous situations, they can be in tune with their victims. And so the phrase they would use is, I wonder if you can help me. So just remember that phrase, I wonder if you can help me. It kind of obligates good people to expose themselves to risk. So first of all, let's tell all our daughters and wives that if somebody who seems meek ever asks them, I wonder if you could help me, be careful about going down a dark corner or looking into a car, because it's a very effective social psychology maneuver. But you can also use it to turn into something positive in your own negotiations. So if you need something from somebody in the department store, and I've since tried it, it works wonderfully. I wonder if you could help me with this. And it's amazing how often they'll find a way to do it. The other phrase I've used is, let me ask you a question. Do you have the power to help me with this? And when you ask somebody in the store that question, I've found sometimes, even if they don't have the power, they'll actually break the rules so they can look like they have the power to give you a discount or to do a refund. So rather than going in and being kind of aggressive and demanding things, go in and say, let me ask you a question. Do you have the power to help me with this particular problem? And you can see their eyes kind of look, do I have the power? Can I get away with it? Who do I have to talk to? I should have the power. Nobody's around. I can do it. So very effective negotiation technique. So that's a double-sided coin. Protect your loved ones by letting them know how people can trick them to go into dangerous places by using language that is powerful. I wonder if you can help me. And use that same technique to get more out of your negotiation situations. I recently came back from South Korea, and I had occasion on Remembrance Day to go to the demilitarized zone. For most people have heard about North and South Korea. Very few people have seen it. Very few people have felt how intense the tension is between this country, these two countries now that have been separated for 70 years. And there's a demilitarized zone that's 3 to 4 kilometers that separates the two countries that none of the armies can be in, but both armies face each other. It's a very high tension. You don't screw around when you go there with either military, and you'll be arrested if you play games there. But I thought, we're disassociated from the real risk of nuclear war, and people kind of throw around political certainties out there without really understanding the consequences of an escalation of conflict into nuclear war. Too many people are focused on being right rather than understanding conflict. But when I went there, I took a second to Google North and South Korea at night using Google Earth at night. And I think it has some relevance to politics. It's not perfect, but when you look at Seoul, the capital of South Korea, at night, it is giantly bright, rich, and populated, you can tell with well. If you look at Pyongyang, capital of North Korea, it's got like the tiniest little flicker of one light. Now that's the capital of North Korea, a whole country. It doesn't have enough electricity to even show up on Google Earth. Take a look at it. It'll blow your mind away. North Korea was populated by liberal-leaning communists who left Korea after World War II and migrated all to the north. Communism is supposed to raise the boat of all people, and I can understand why that's a well-intentioned thing. But it does so at the expense of top performers. And you have to think of what motivates people to go above and beyond. If you create a society that just focuses on equilibrium or equality, you will disincentivize the few people in our society who have the capacity to do wonderful things. And this is what I kind of saw. I saw in the Democrats that they wanted to just make everybody in a leadership position look like something they wanted them to look like, as opposed to encourage in our society the elevation of absolutely amazing humans. And when you see in North Korea, they created a society that was supposed to lift everybody up, and in the end, it really destroyed their society. Whereas Seoul embraced, more than I think many of the Asian countries, America's meritocracy and the encouragement of trying to be as successful and rich as possible. When you go to Europe, it's like you can be successful, but don't be too successful because we have class systems here that put everybody in a place. The beauty of America is it says, come here and be as successful as you can be. And we won't judge you negatively. We will celebrate your success. But there's been a move towards attacking people who are successful. Now, are there some people who are successful because they commit crimes or they might have inherited it? But if you look through human history, most humans benefit from the 1% of people who invented penicillin, gasoline engine, pasteurization, whatever it is. So everybody talks about the 1% like it's bad. I want to talk about the 1%, like the 1% give disproportionately more to the 99% of us who can't build a spaceship, who can't create a neural link, right? What we can do is get a job and show up at the job with a coffee and then have opinions about politics that we share on social media. We tear down people who are doing things. But Korea is a great example of that. You encourage people to go as far as they can go. It raises the 1% success if it's managed properly, and we don't allow them to get away with murder, raises all boats, and it's the most evident in America. Most of the technological advancement of the last century has come from America because we have celebrated scientists who do amazing things and then celebrated that they become very frickin' rich. And as long as we're moving, there are people that want to minimize that, say, oh, you've got a private jet, you're a bad person. No. Elon has a private jet because he does 10,000 times more than any other person around him can do. And getting those people in our species and allowing them to flourish will raise all of our boats, as opposed to taking average people, elevating them to positions they don't deserve and saying, oh my God, look how fair we are. We will devolve into North Korea compared to where South Korea is. So a little perspective that I thought I would share with you. I also want to talk about a couple of, when I was talking to these behavioral psychologists, there's some things that I thought were really interesting. And you could ask yourself if you see this in your social circles when it comes to what people believe is true or not. There's something that I came across in criminal law. It's called the Abilene paradox. In the Abilene paradox, an example I could give to you is like in a jury. Everybody may think the accused is not guilty, but at the same time, all 12 jury members believe that everybody else thinks he's guilty. And they're scared to say anything because they believe everybody else believes the opposite. But the reality is that everybody is sharing the same concern. The lesson learned is make sure you always feel comfortable sharing your concern. Because sometimes you sharing that concern, all of a sudden the other 11 people go, oh, I was thinking that too. And everybody's like, we were all thinking that, but nobody would say anything because they all thought everybody was thinking the opposite. And social status and social acceptance really affects how people make decisions and how people vocalize their thoughts. So create an environment where people, that's why I'm so strict about not canceling people or telling people to shut up. You never know when you're going to get the great answer, the great solution. You have to encourage people to share their opinions. I see it so much in some young people. I see it in my daughters. It's like, I just want them to stand up, say what you think, test your idea, learn from it, improve, and do it again. Don't fall victim to social pressures to shut up or accept what everybody tells you they have to believe. It actually kind of comes into something called social desirability bias, which has infected corporations and governments, where people are projecting things that they think make them desirable socially and are hiding what they actually believe privately. And I think the election of Trump is a great example of people were just quiet about what they really thought and voted what they thought, and a bunch of people, pollsters and strategists, really missed it. So I want to encourage people to be in a place where they can actually say what they think without fear of being attacked or labeled as a bad person, so that their thoughts could be tested, because it is from the conflict of ideas that the best solutions come from. And if you're in an environment that doesn't allow for the vigorous conflict of ideas, you're not going to get the best solutions in your organization, in your family, in your church, or in your society. I'm going down a rabbit hole of this, but finally what I'd love to share with you in this particular segment is also called social conformity. And you can look up these tests where there's 12 people involved in an experiment, but only one person is the subject of the experiment. And they did a series of math tests. I think I spoke about it on the Justice College podcast with Dr. Robert Barrett. It's amazing. The 11 people are in on the experiment, and they answer obvious math problems wrong. And then the one person who is the subject of the experiment, who knows what the answer is, whether it's math or which apple is bigger or not, this statistic was fascinating that Rob shared. 1/3 of the people being tested always conform to what the group is saying, even though they know it's wrong in their head. Think about that. Of your population, 1/3 of the population will do what they see the masses are doing, even though they know it's wrong. As so far, one of the tests was, is that ball blue or is that ball red? Right? And they just thought they were getting something wrong. 75% will do it at least once over 5 different experiments, right? So what's interesting is only 25% or less will say what they believe is true despite social pressures. Those are the people that we need in our society. We need more people to be encouraged to say what they think is true despite what social conformity pressures tell them not to. So if you're sitting at home, you're saying, you know what, I don't think that any guy should be able to say I'm a girl and then play basketball or football with them, and you think that you can't say it, well, you can say it. Say it, and then let's test it. See if it's true. See if there's a solution. But don't feel pressured to be silent because you don't want to be judged by society. Easier said than done, because in some jobs you'll get fired. You'd have your career ruined. But once that kind of social conformity virus takes effect in an organization, this is where you see organizations that are completely useless in terms of getting anything done. And all they do is reinforce their own virtuous actions, but they're not really achieving the mission. Lastly, I was asked, I think by one of my cool kids, they were kind of asking what my favorite movies were, and then one of them asked, so what was your favorite beverage? And I think they were wondering if I had a milkshake but I can tell you what my favorite beverage of all time was. And I was sitting in a trench during officer training with one of my best buddies, Stephen Nolan, who's a retired colonel in the Canadian Armed Forces. And we were on this one of the hardest exercises of this training, which is known as one of the toughest courses in the Canadian Armed Forces. And it had been 4 or 5 days of freezing rain, light snow, just out in the east coast of Canada, New Brunswick, it's just like hellish place. No sleep, no resupply, 1 ration pack a day, no time to eat it. And then the final part of the operation, in which they're trying to break you, was a defensive section where we stop the advance and we all have to dig trenches. It's officer training, but we have to learn what the troops did. And so Steve and I had to dig a trench. We weren't allowed fires. It's called zero light, because in the old days, overhead aircraft could see fires. So we weren't allowed to use any light at all. We dig this trench, and finally they come around and give us a little fuel and say, hey, you can start a fire and light a coffee. And so you have these little hex tabs, probably poisonous as heck, that we light on fire, has a stand. You put a tin canteen cup on it, fill it with water, boil it, and then in your ration pack, you have 2 packs of sugar, 2 packs of creamer. And we put that in that coffee, heated it up, and Steve and I drank it. And we were like, oh my God, this is the best drink we've ever had in our life. And the lesson is that you can enjoy simple things if you deprive yourself of abundance. And the interesting follow-up to it in the end is years later, Steve and I were hanging out somewhere, and we got our old military kit out, and we actually remade that coffee the exact same way, and we drank it and tasted like fucking shit. It was the worst drink ever. So the perspective on what is delightful, what is memorable, most of our best memories come from some form of suffering beforehand. And we need to remember that as we're just seeking ever-present enjoyment. You don't really enjoy things unless you've been deprived of things or unless you've earned them. So the answer to my kid's question about the best drink I ever had was that coffee in probably a poisonous tin cup, inhaling poisonous fumes with my good buddy Steve Nolan in a dirty, cold trench in New Brunswick, Canada.